You watchful of young men in their velvet prime. Oh, we're on? Well, hello, everyone. I didn't know you were there. Welcome, one and all, to the Winston Creosote Godbold Reaction channel. My name is David, and I will be reacting to Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 3. As many of you know, I rate each episode based on a criteria that is now shown below in the description. Criteria were covered in detail in the first two episodes of my reactions to Star Trek Picard. So if you've not seen those episodes or you want a refresher, you can access those via the links below. Please note, red alert, there will be spoilers in this review. So if you've not seen Star Trek Picard, any of the episodes this season, by all means, go back and watch them. I think it's well worth your while. Believe it or not, I think it's a step above Star Trek Picard Season 1, 2, and Discovery. So take time to watch those so that when you come, you don't feel like I've spoiled something. And when you do have the time to come back and watch these videos, what I'm saying will make a whole lot more sense to you. One of the very best things about this episode out of the gate is it's directed by Jonathan Frakes, which I think most of you folks know is Commander Riker from The Next Generation, now Captain Riker in this series. And Jonathan, all the way back, as I think we know, to the movies that he did for Star Trek, is an excellent director. And when you look at the episodes that he's directed of the new Star Trek series, I think some of those come out to be the very best episodes that we've seen in any of the Star Trek. And so I am very pleased to see that he's a part of it, because I think he brings his very best, and the directing is another great skill set in addition to his acting. So that's a very positive element of this episode. As with all modern Trek, the special effects in Star Trek Picard Season 3 are excellent. This episode is no different. It's just a step above what we've seen in Star Trek before. So if you've never started to watch since Star Trek Enterprise, the new Trek, you'll find the special effects are excellent. And I totally agree with everyone out there who would say special effects don't make a show, but it is certainly nice to have that beauty. One area in this episode where you can really see how the special effects have come a long way is there's a flashback scene with Riker and Picard where they're discussing Riker's son, and the de-aging effects on Riker and Picard are fantastic. Nothing here to me looked out of place at all. It's some of the best de-aging that I'd seen. So these special effects really make the storytelling more believable, especially when you're doing flashback scenes. And I think that that's something great that we have the ability to do now. The challenges that Starfleet and the Federation, and again, the whole Alpha Quadrant, are facing may be some of the most significant that we have seen in a very, very long time, but are very organic as well. One of the things I like about it is it's not like some of the other series where we see some kind of, I don't know, robot creature coming through a hole in space that's going to attack us because they don't like us. It's nothing like that. This is something that's very organic and comes from the heart of Star Trek. It's something that feels, again, very comfortable, which is what I really like about this season, is you feel like you're home, that you are back home in the Star Trek universe. While there are very many things going on right now in Star Trek that I think are fantastic, Strange New World, Star Trek Picard Season 3, there's still some things I feel do not reflect Star Trek as it should be, that do need to be tweaked a little bit to elevate these shows to the next level. I think part of it comes from the belief that Gene Roddenberry's original vision of having no conflict between the crew is not reasonable. The conflict is where drama comes from. I think a lot of people would say, well, there was, if you count Star Trek and then the Brennan Braga Star Trek, that's like, 25 years, 624 hours or something like that of excellent Star Trek. And there is conflict, but I would call it professional conflict for the most part. And that is what I think we are lacking right now in this show, that hopefully will be resolved. And I think maybe at the end of this episode, it has been resolved. So we'll have a slightly smoother behavior pattern from the leads going forward. And I think that is exemplified above the Titan, the problems that I'm talking about, in that you have too many flag officers on the deck. You have Riker as a captain, you have Picard as an admiral, retired, and you have Captain Shaw. And you see continually, even in episode 3, that they're disagreeing with or providing a great many suggestions to him directly in front of the rest of the bridge crew. Now, there's an appropriate way to handle that. Directly behind Captain Shaw's bridge is the ready room. If you have something you need to say, I think that the professional thing would be to go back, have a discussion with him, point out your concerns about what's going on. But ultimately, he is the captain. So when you're on the bridge, you need to be supporting him or saying nothing at all. That is what we would see in Next Generation. Shaw cannot be an effective captain with two other captains disagreeing with him openly in front of the bridge crew. That's something that I think needs to stop. Now, during this episode, we see Shaw get injured in conflict with the Shrike, and he is injured pretty significantly. It's one of the more significant injuries I think we've seen on Star Trek. A lot more blood, a lot more pain and anguish that you can see going on. He's actually bleeding from the mouth, probably some internal injuries there. Before he leaves the bridge, he puts Captain Riker in charge. That makes sense to me because Seven has been relieved of duty and is in her, quarters. Picard is a retired admiral. He hasn't seen service in 20 years, really, aboard a modern starship. So, and Riker has. So it makes a lot of sense to me that he puts Riker into that position. And so for the remainder of the episode, though, we begin to see Riker and Picard have the exact same conflict in front of the crew that they were having with Shaw as captain. This is demoralizing, I think, to the crew and just very confusing and very unprofessional. Picard is kind of second guessing all these decisions that Riker is making, wanting to be a lot more aggressive in how they take on the Shrike. And it almost feels like, I understand his son's on board and all that, but it almost feels like Commodore Wesley versus Mr. Spock and Captain Kirk to an extent on the Doomsday Machine episode, where he just wants to attack it, and then Picard does, and as attack, they're simply not going to win. And so he keeps putting that pressure on there. Again, the proper resolution is to go speak in the ready room and try to address it there as opposed to speaking in front of the crew like that. That is how I think it would best be addressed and how they would do it professionally in the past as we've seen done. So you can have conflict in a professional, respectful manner. Riker actually eventually has to ask Picard to leave the bridge. Picard realizes some of the things he's been saying have been inappropriate, have not been helping, so he does leave the bridge. So what I think we've seen here, I'm hoping going forward, I've not seen any other episodes, but I'm hoping that both Picard and Riker, after seeing how they treated each other, will realize how they've been treating Captain Shaw is the same, and that is unacceptable. You can't treat people like that, even if you disagree with them. There's more professional ways of dealing with it. So Picard is leaving the bridge. Now, something else that popped into my head, and this goes back to episode 1. They never, and this is under Captain Shaw, they never called for help from Starfleet Command when they went in to do this. And I can understand that Shaw doesn't want to get them involved, maybe because he feels that what he's doing is inappropriate in rescuing the Ilios and the people from that ship. But it makes absolutely no sense that when they had the opportunity to contact Starfleet, they did not ask for backup. Again, that feels like something that should have been done sooner, because now that they're stuck in the nebula, they can't communicate to anybody at all. So one of the elements of this episode that I really love is the Raffi and Worf relationship. I didn't even think I'd ever say that about something Raffi is doing. Clearly, this is a much better written character for that actress than what we had in the first 2 seasons. So she's waking up from having been drugged by Splinter. She hears some music on board the La Sirena, and she goes to find out who the heck this is. She doesn't know who her handler is, her teammate is. She's going to go and find out. She tries to sneak up on the individual. That individual knows she's coming, throws a knife at her and disarms her. She was coming out with a phaser, and then asks her if she wants some tea. And we begin to learn that Worf, although he's, I think, still the same Worf we used to engage with, there's a little more of a Zen situation in him where there's no reason to remain angry. What you need to do is what you need to do at the time, and then move again to a state of reason and contemplation. And that's who he's now become. Raffi and Worf very quickly overcome their differences and begin to work together to locate somebody named Titus Rika, I believe. And Worf says we need to locate him because I believe this is the individual who actually stole the portal weapon. And we see that portal weapon in use against the Titan, and it's pretty awesome. And so it's a very dangerous weapon taken from Daystrom Institute. They need to find out who stole it from there. They think it's Titus Rika. They do end up capturing Titus, and they are interrogating him, and he seems himself to be going through something. Either he's very ill, or he himself has been drugged and is going through withdrawal. A lot of shaking, a lot of sweating, a lot of clear discomfort. What they learn, spoiler ahead, is that he is actually a changeling. And by changeling, I mean founder. And by founder, I mean Deep Space Nine founder. Now, Rafi has no idea what this is, but when the guy eventually breaks down because he's been trying to hold a solid shape for too long, breaks down to a liquid form, Worf kills him and then explains to her that as a founder, he can't hold his shape, and that's why that was happening. He's held it too long. But that the Federation has known that some, not all, that some of the founders never did give up on the war. This again seems absolutely boggling to me and does not feel like Star Trek or Federation appropriate. And he says the reason they didn't let anyone know is they didn't want to have to start up the Dominion War again or cause fear and panic. But one of the things they did during the Dominion Wars, they had a lot of ways set up to detect people who were founders, who were changelings. They've dismantled all that. So what we see now is they have permeated Starfleet, the Federation, probably our allies, the Klingons, the Romulans. Who knows how far it's gone? So the threat this season is very significant. The threat is so great that we discover a changeling is actually infiltrated the Titan. Now, I think something's important. I don't think they had any idea, the changelings, the founders, that Picard and Riker would be getting on board the Titan. That was just a random happenstance that they came up with, Picard and Riker, on their own. But that ship had a changeling on board it, so they are everywhere. They've infiltrated a lot of places, and he is making it so much more easy for Vadic to locate the ship by sabotaging it in such a way that even without her scanners, she is able to detect where the Titan is and continue to attack it. So the threat from the founders is going to be very significant. I am excited to see this arc play out. I myself kind of felt that it was more of a draw in that war than otherwise, and how the Federation won that war, if you want to call it that, or brought the war to a close, is Section 31 actually used an illegal infection, essentially, a biological weapon against the founders that was going to kill them. And that's the whole reason why the founders left the Alpha Quadrant. So I could see a lot of them being very angry about that. That's certainly using that kind of biological weapon is not the Federation way, but we may discover that they have no choice in this season but to do something similar, because the Dominion is a powerful organization to fight against, as we saw in all of DS9. If you haven't seen Deep Space Nine, go back and watch those episodes, some of the best episodes of Star Trek. So my rating of this episode is a 3.5 out of 5. It is my favorite episode thus far of Star Trek Picard Season 3, because I think we have the whole tapestry of what's going to be happening. For the most part, I'm sure there'll be many surprises, but I think that's been laid out for us. The conflict on the bridge of the Titan, I think, needs to stop, and hopefully that has. They'll be more professional going forward, because that just does not at all feel like Star Trek to me, and that is how come it did not get a 4 or 4.5 out of 5, is that behavior just does not make sense to me. In addition, I think the truth will set the Federation free, keeping from the majority of Starfleet personnel and from the Federation members themselves, that the everyday people like you and I as Federation members, keeping from us that the Dominion was still at war with us, or an element of it. That seems very strange, because they could have set up all sorts of technology to try to protect us from that. Now we're going to have to dig ourselves out of that hole. We'll wait and see how that plays out. Thank you so very much for taking the time to watch today. Please like and subscribe if you've not already done so. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Be well until we meet again.